My name is Sandra Tuttle, and I joined in the very early 70s.
What leagues have you been a member of?
Only the Portland Junior League.
What made you decide to join the Junior League?
Well, I had a friend who invited me to join. She was a former president, and she told me it was an organization of volunteers. Now, I knew what volunteering was because my parents were role models. They were very active in our community, and they taught me very early on to give and do for others. So, and they were also leaders in their community. So I heard from my sponsor that this organization had some incredible women, and they had training to teach the volunteers to be more professional. So that was the hook that kind of did it for me. And so I joined in the early 70s.
What roles have you taken on throughout the league years?
Well, as a provisional member, we got to tour the city. We learned a lot about what was going on in the city of Portland. And I remember very candidly, the tour was to the city dump, to the sewage system, to the institution, which was Pineland at that time before it came something else. And I really enjoyed the year, but I learned to appreciate the group of women that I was with. Very accomplished and so friendly and so nice. It was a great year for me. And then my first chair was that of provisional chair. So I decided that yes, it was important to learn about the city, but I didn't think we needed to tour the dump or the sewage system. So what I did was I had different organizations come and speak to us and learned, of course, the city landmarks. We toured the places that had been renovated by some of the former league members and a little bit of history in the Portland area. It was a large group, over 40 gals, and I'll tell you, we had a ball. We had a ball. And they became good friends, many to this day. And of course, we had training going on all the time. My next job was, as you said, corresponding secretary. So what I did, I learned to got to know all the active members and many of the sustainers, which was really good. And what I learned was we were part of an association that was nationwide and had gone international during my term. So we had resources that were unbelievable, and we utilized them. We had training for board members. We had all kinds of training opportunities. Some were delegates to the National Association, and they would go and bring back what they learned. So we had those as trainers. We had people from the community come in as trainers. And of course, we had representatives from the Association New York coming to us to train. So we were very, very fortunate to have all of that. We really did a lot of training in those days, and it was fun. It was nice. The next job I had was vice president. And at that time, I realized I needed to get my hands around the gorilla. How do you run a meeting properly and efficiently and effectively? Time is very precious. Many of us had children, so I wanted to make the meetings worthwhile, worth their time, but I didn't know how to do it. So I enrolled in a very intense parliamentary law course. I learned from our bylaws that our parliamentary authority was Robert's Rules of Order, so I went out and bought the book. I read it cover to cover, but I don't recommend it as a novel or a great read. If you have insomnia, it's great to have at your bedside table. But there was a group of other members, men and women, and we were able to role play. So what became, the more we practiced it, the more it made sense. And I learned several things. First of all, how to conduct a proper meeting, how to preside, start your meetings on time. People who are there in attendance must speak through the chair. It cuts out all the chatter in the room. I learned that there was a pecking order of motions, but you didn't have to memorize them because you can do what I had as a grid. So I always had as a cheat sheet on the dais. I learned what a dais was. It's the speaking platform. The podium is the floor you stand on. I learned that the American flag goes to the right of the speaker. I learned that God comes before country when you do the benediction or the salute to the flag. Of course, many different organizations have their own traditions, but I learned if you didn't have it, I knew what to do. So it was a very intense course, and so it was very helpful for me to gain a little confidence to know how to preside. And then it came time for me to do that. And I decided in my first term as president to really focus more internally on the members and the meetings, because I felt in my heart they needed a little tweaking. So that's what I did. I focused on the internal part of the organization, and that was to plan, prepare, participate, and by all means have a little fun. And so I focused then on the training opportunities. I wanted my members to become leaders in the community, and I wanted them to know if they became a board member what they should know. Number one, they should know the mission statement. They should be familiar with the bylaws of that organization. They should know what the parliamentary authority is. I wanted them to be protected. Did they have an indemnification clause, or in this litigious society, I wanted them to be safe, and then to be prepared and participate on their board. So that's one thing we got very clear. And we had workshops, seminars. They learned to lead meetings. They learned to speak. And all women come with some skills, but the league gives them an opportunity to hone those skills. For instance, not everybody's born an orator. And so by conducting meetings, seminars, workshops, consensus building, role playing, and participating in the different trainings opportunities we had, they gained confidence. And that's what makes the difference. When you get up to speak, it's not just what you say, but how you deliver. And the league gave us that confidence because it was a safe space for us to practice. And then I was recruited by a parade around my house to do a second term. And I'd like to mention one of the training opportunities that we had was prioritizing. And the exercise we had was led by two sustainers, two very accomplished women. And the exercise was, what if you had 6 months to live? As hard as that was, one of our trainers showed us in real time. She received a diagnosis, and I'd like to pay homage to Connie. She was wonderful, and it was a sad time for us. Another training opportunity that we had was AMP. It was strategic planning, and I forget the acronym because I'm old. AMP. But in that training, which was very intense, there was a section on event planning. And I remember well those letters. It's MTA. And it's not MTA by the Kingston Trio, it's something else. M is for the materials that you need to do an event. M is for members that you need to carry that out. M is for the money. How much do you need and how you're going to get it? T is for time. You need to do a timeline. And I found it much easier to do my timelines from the day of execution backwards. Then I tend not to forget anything. And then A is for authority. Who's in charge of doing what? So those letters I use for the next 30 plus years. So that was one of the bonuses of joining the Junior League. Plus it gave me many opportunities beyond that. And in my final year as a presiding officer, of course, there are several duties. You not only preside, but you're concerned about recruitment, you're concerned about retention, and you're concerned about the continuation of training. And one of the trainings that we did were for outside organizations. We put together a board training session, and A.L. Carlisle and I did many of those sessions. We called it our dog and pony show, but we went to several organizations and we would consult with them first to find out what their needs might be. And we probably had 2 hours of training, role playing, and we would hand out our questionnaire or assessment, if you will, and I'm very proud to say they were very positive. So that was our external opportunity to help other organizations. Now, during this time of my involvement, there were just enormous talent. We had the Children's Museum, which started in the basement of a church, and A.L. Carlisle was the innovator of that. And her provisional class members stuck together all through her years in the league. And even at her service that was mentioned those names. And she not only did that, but she collaborated with the league for a United Way panel discussion. We had a women's conference at Westbrook College. We had the cookbook, which was going on as a fundraiser. One of the pillars of the league when I first joined, my clock, one of the pillars was the thrift shop on Congress Street. And we were required to give 20 hours to the shop. And our other requirement was attendance at meetings. We were allowed 1 absence a year. And so we finally sold the thrift shop, and that was a lot of legal issues that carried on. And A.L. led that change, but we became very aware of things we didn't really want to know about incorporation and legalities of selling and all of that. So it was a good learning experience for us, but we needed funds, so that's why the cookbook. We all became test kitchens, but the fun thing that came out of that was we had progressive dinners. We would test the hors d'oeuvre at one house, do the entree at another house, and then the desserts finally at the last house. So we had a lot of fun in the league and made a lot of friends. And I think if there's anything more than training, it's the friendships that you develop. It's a group of very accomplished women who have enormous talent, enormous personalities, a get up and go that's hard to find in all people, and just the talent. You surround yourself with that and you're forever grateful because you've been blessed.
Thank you so much. What did you learn from being part of the league in addition to what you just told me?
I learned, believe it or not, simple things. I'm one that understands, but it's got to click. The puzzle's got to click for me. So I got a lot of clicks out of the league. In role playing, in consensus building, and of course parliamentary law, which is something that just intrigued me. And I really enjoyed that after all the agony that it created in my life. It was nice to have that knowledge because I utilized it later on. And I could participate with some intelligence. So it was the training that I got, the confidence that I gained, and the friendships. I guess that's it in a nutshell.
What is your favorite memory from being in the league?
My provisional class that I chaired. I don't know how to put, they were my peers, but I almost had a mother hen instinct. They were my chicks, and they were wonderful. We had the best time, and we learned a lot, but we learned from each other. And I think that was what made it so wonderful. Of course, back then, most of us had children, so we met in everybody's homes, and I had a daughter. I was still at home. A.L. was a single mother of 3 boys. Sally Van Vacchius had a daughter, Amanda, and our children used to play going to meetings. That's what we did to them. Plus, they all know where the thrift shop was because they spent a lot of time in there. But I've got to say, one of those girls who played go to meeting is now chairman of the board of one of the biggest organizations in the city. So a little bit of the league rubbed off on her, I think.
Is there anything else you would like to add?
The league changed my life. It opened doors that I never thought I would go through. I got a gubernatorial appointment to the Board of Medicine, where I served for 12 years. And that was a challenge, but I liked it. The board licenses and disciplines physicians. So it was a heavy responsibility. And I was grateful to the league for what I had gained, both in knowledge and confidence. I then went on, and the doors were opened to me for state and federal government. So learning about bylaws, one of the jobs that I was appointed to was appointment secretary for the governor. Now that was finding people to serve on various boards. You had to find them. You had to go to the statutes to make sure they met all the statutory requirements, and each one was in a different section. So I found that much easier after what I had learned. Then you vet them, then you write testimony, and then you have to present them for confirmation. So I had to speak before many Senate committees, and it was the league that gave me the knowledge and the confidence to do that. So it changed my life, really.
Well, thank you so much for taking this time with me. It's been great to listen to your stories, and I appreciate it so much.
Well, you're more than welcome. I owe a big debt to the Junior League. I really do. I would encourage anybody to join. People say, I don't have time for it. Well, I've learned in my old age that time is the most precious commodity, and you have to make time for things that you want. And I also learned that busy people get things done. So the busier you are, the more you're apt to accomplish, and the league will give you some guidelines along the way to help you.